Alright. This is going to be sort of a rambly video, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on Battle for Azeroth so far, and just some of the things going on in WoW right now. Some of the developments, some of the future, what the future holds, and I just want to talk. So, you know, if you want to listen. If not, I totally understand. So, I'm just gonna get into it. Basically, I guess I'm just gonna work on some questing while I ramble here. So, bear with me, I guess. So let's go. So it's been about a month, since BFA came out, and I have capped 3 characters in that time. I've done every, I think every, I don't think there's any side quests left. Everything in Zandalar. And I've done most stuff in Kultiris. I haven't actually finished Tiergard Sound, or Drisvar. But, just doing Stormsong and half of Tiergard was enough to get my Hunter to 120, surprisingly. But I've got other Alliance characters, and I will probably do the other areas, so I'm not repeating content. And basically, I've capped 3 characters. Right now I'm working on my warrior. And I guess my initial thought is, it's been a month, so the first raid just came out. That's Uldir. I don't think it's out in Raid Finder yet. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not out in Raid Finder yet. Oh, well, I can't even check on this character, but yeah. I think Raid Finder comes out this week. And, I am not a serious raider. I never have been, especially considering, I run my guild, and it's just me and a couple friends. So we don't raid new content. I mean, we do, but we just do it in LFR. So I'm not, a good judge of the raiding game. But I do plan on doing Uldir as soon as it comes up on LFR, just because, I want some new content to do. So I don't really know how Uldir is yet, but I have a lot to say about just the questing experience in Battle for Azeroth so far. And I guess I would summarize how I feel overall so far by saying I like Battle for Azeroth, but I don't love it. Now, what does that mean, right? Well, I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it so far. I've enjoyed the leveling experience. And it's I guess I must have at least gotten something out of it to have been willing to sit through the questing process 3 times so far, and now I'm working on a 4th character. But I can't help but compare to Legion, and I really, really enjoyed Legion. I loved Legion. I think Legion was easily the best expansion since Lich King. And I feel like most of the people I've talked to share that opinion. Legion, they really hit it out of the park, and it's a really sort of a high watermark for WoW. Hopefully the sound's not too loud. Oh, I hope it's not too loud. I'm sitting here not paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm gonna turn the game sound down here in a sec. I was like, why is this mob taking so long to kill? And I was like, oh, it's a boss. Jesus, dude. Can I not die? Would be great. Thank you. Okay, that was dumb. Okay, I'm gonna turn the game audio way down here, so. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I feel like most people I've talked to sort of share the opinion that Legion was the best expansion in a long time. You know, some would say since Lich King, some would say since Burning Crusade. But I don't think anyone thinks that there has been an expansion as good or better than Legion between, you know, like Lich King and Legion. Like, you know, Burning Crusade is pretty widely beloved. And Lich King was pretty widely beloved. And Cataclysm, a lot of people outright hate. I don't hate Cataclysm. I think it did a lot of good things, but I sure don't think it was very strong. I think it was a pretty weak expansion overall. Pandaria, I actually quit the game during... Like, I actually quit the game during Cataclysm, and I didn't come back at all during Pandaria, is what I mean. I'm gonna die here. I really should have paid attention to the fact that that was a boss. Anyway, I quit during Pandaria. Or I cannot focus. I quit during... Wow, why am I all the way up here? I quit during... Wow, I'm all the way up here. That is ridiculous. Well, I guess I'm just going to take the res sickness. That's ridiculous. Okay. I quit during Cataclysm because I just was not especially fond of it. I ran a Death Knight during Lich King. And, but I never really did any of the endgame content. And when Cataclysm came out, I leveled my Death Knight into the 80s, and proceeded to play through the Cataclysm content. And, I guess I'm just gonna work on my Hunter, even though it's not, it's not BFA content, but that's okay. And I began leveling through the Cataclysm content, and I just really didn't enjoy it. And even to this day, I think that the Catazones, the revamp they did to the 1 through 60 content was good. It was much needed. It had been 6 years since vanilla, and the content was pretty dated at that point. And fuck, now it's been 8 years since Cataclysm, and this content, look at this. This is really dated again. Like, this has not aged all that well. But it is good that they did that, at least with Cataclysm. A lot of people, go, oh, it sucks that, they got rid of vanilla. Vanilla was great. Vanilla sucked. Like, it was great at the time. Let's be honest. At the time, vanilla World of Warcraft was incredible. There was nothing else like it, and we should look back on it fondly, but by 2010 that content was so dated, and people being like, oh well, they shouldn't have gotten rid of all that shit. Dude, no, the 1 through 60 leveling experience in vanilla content prior to Cataclysm was pretty rough. It sucked. And you can say, well, it made you, take your time, and you couldn't just breeze through it. Yeah, at the time that was important because the level cap was 60. And then during Burning Crusade, the level cap was 70. And during Lich King, the level cap was 80. What am I even doing in this area? 10B somethings. The bar kept getting raised to the point where it was taking so long just to get to 60 because vanilla content took so long. And then on top of that, you had, you know, by the time Lich King ended, you had 2 expansions worth of content to level through on top of that. So, oh, Shrink and Capture Fallen Beast. Okay. So basically, you know, I think it took probably as long to get from 1 to 60 as it took to get from 60 to 70, and then as it took to get from 70 to 80, and maybe even longer back then. And it must have been longer. It must have been twice as long, at least. And it just sucked, you know? So I think this nostalgia people have for vanilla, like, it's good to look back on it fondly, but do you really want to play it again? So when Cataclysm revamped all that stuff, I think that was good. I think that was a really good thing. And now here I am doing this Cataclysm content in this video right now, and again, it's all, this is dated. You know, it's now been 8 years. The time between vanilla and Cataclysm was shorter than the time between Cataclysm and today. So I really think they need to revamp this content again. But anyway, so Cataclysm had its good parts, but I think the actual 80 to 85 was pretty miserable. Like, I don't really like any of those zones. Hyjal kind of sucks. Uldum kind of sucks. Twilight Highlands suck. It was all just really miserable. And samey and just boring. You know, and it took a long time just to get 5 levels down. I feel like it took as long as the 10 levels in Lich King. I just didn't enjoy it, so I quit even before I capped. And I never got around to doing any of the endgame content, which is a shame, because I think if I had stuck with Cataclysm, I would have enjoyed the endgame content, because, you know, I've since gone back, and I run the Cataclysm raids all the time just for transmog stuff. Cata had really great raids. Firelands is a great raid. Deathwing's Descent is a really great raid. I keep killing things and then not doing the thing. Wow, okay. So I think Cata ended up actually having a pretty satisfying endgame, but the actual grind to get there, I just don't think was all that good. So I quit, and then Panda came out, and I bought Panda. I resubbed. I started a Pandaren just because I wanted to see, you know, what they were all about. Probably a monk. I played for like 5 minutes, and I guess I just wasn't in the mood. I wasn't feeling it, and I just stopped, and I let my sub run out, and I never came back to it. And I didn't actually come back to WoW until Warlords of Draenor came out. And Warlords was, I think, a pretty good expansion. A lot of people like to shit on it for the garrisons, and yes, that was probably a bad decision on on Blizzard's part. But like the actual content in Warlords of Draenor, I think was pretty solid. Going back to Draenor, for me, I started during Burning Crusade, so like there's a lot of nostalgia there. And they redid the content in such a way that it wasn't just like pandering to our nostalgia. It offered a completely new perspective on Draenor, and the storytelling was really good. The leveling experience was, it took time. You couldn't just breeze through it in a day, but it was, you were enjoying the ride, I think. Warlords of Draenor was a pretty good expansion from a leveling perspective, but once you capped, I got to 100 on my Death Knight. I still played my same Death Knight, and you get to level 100, and I feel like at max level there basically just wasn't any endgame content, especially at first. Because like when I picked up Warlords of Draenor, I think was right around the time High Maul came out. And I wasn't in a raiding guild. So it's not like I had anybody to do it with. And I, if I had cared, I could have definitely found a guild and everything, but I just didn't really care. I've never, like I said, I've never been a big raider. I just do LFR for fun, just to experience the content. I've always cared more about the actual leveling experience, and like the end game questing, gearing up, that sort of stuff. I find that more entertaining than raids, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, there wasn't actually much end game content in Draenor. We had basically, you'd get to 110 and Tanan Jungle, Tanan, I don't know how it's pronounced, would open up. But there really just wasn't anything enjoyable to do in Tanan Jungle other than complete dailies and get geared to do raids. You could grind out rep with 3 different factions, but like it was a bitch. You could grind out Apexis crystals, but that was awful. And there was a really cool mount. What I wish I had, the Fell Raven. I might one of these days go back and actually grind out the Apexis crystals to get that mount, because that is a really cool mount. But I don't know, I just feel like there wasn't anything fun to do once you capped in Draenor. Especially when there was only one raid. And then they only ended up having 3 raids in Warlords anyway. Like, that kind of sucked. Blackrock Foundry was a pretty good raid. I think it was long. It had a lot of interesting bosses. They had interesting mechanics. You got a lot of good gear. I just like the theming of it. I think Blackrock Foundry was a lot of fun. Hellfire Citadel I have not completed. You can actually solo it now at 120, except for the fact that the first encounter is you're fighting these like tanks, like literal machines, and you have to be able to be in 2 places at once. So it's hard to I don't know if it's outright impossible, but it's definitely very, very hard to solo, and I have not been able to do it yet. So I ran through about half of Hellfire Citadel, just me and one friend, at 120, just so we could get some transmog stuff, and we ran into a glitch. So we have not yet finished Hellfire Citadel, but I can imagine at the time Hellfire would have been a pretty fun raid to do. I really like the aesthetic of it. I like the theming. I think the bosses are all pretty interesting. But that was it, Draenor had 3 raids. And just nothing to do at level 100. So, I didn't really stick around long in Warlords of Draenor. I got bored. So I unsubbed for a while, maybe even as long as a year. And finally, they announce Legion. And Legion, everything about Legion that we were hearing in the pre-release material really looked great. Legion was just coming together nicely. I liked the concept of artifact weapons. I liked the idea of class halls, since it would be less that you're stuck in your own garrison and more that you're in a hall full of fellow players. Not that the community aspect of WoW died years ago, let's be honest, so it's not like you're really like communicating and interacting with other players, but at least you didn't feel like you were literally by yourself in this huge garrison. So I don't know, Legion looked good, and obviously Legion, much as Warlords of Draenor, I think, played up Burning Crusade nostalgia, and did it well. Legion obviously was banking on Burning Crusade nostalgia as well, and did it well. All new content, of course. The Broken Isles, I think, are one of the best realized continents in the game. Each zone is very distinct, but equally enjoyable. You know, I love the Stormheim aesthetic. I love that Viking aesthetic. Like Howling Fjord was one of my favorite zones in Lich King. Um, so I really like Stormheim. High Mountain's cool. I love Tauren. I always roll Tauren, as you can see. Not always. I have other characters, but I love Tauren, so I really liked High Mountain. Val Shira, I think, is a gorgeous zone. Val Shira is what like Feralos should look like, right? It's so lush, and that's another reason they need to revamp this content. Is like this looks like, you know, a 10-year-old zone, and Val Shira is so fucking nicely. The art direction was just beautiful, and then Asuna is I think the weakest of the four, but it's still pretty good. Did I use the thing on this? Okay. Asuna is definitely the weakest of the four, but it's still all right. So like the actual leveling experience through Legion, I think was pretty satisfying, and you know, not necessarily better than Warlords had been, but pretty good. But what really shined with Legion was the end game content. You know, once you I didn't do the thing again, did I? Once you capped 120, you could go to Suramar. And man, I feel like Suramar took as long on its own as all 4 leveling zones took, you know? There was so much to do in Suramar, and it's such a beautiful zone. Like, the art direction on it is fantastic. So, like, grinding out... Like, I never actually finished Draenor Pathfinder because it was a bitch, and there was just, like, no incentive to actually do anything at level 100. But I easily finished Legion Pathfinder because I enjoyed doing the content so much. So I got my Legion flying, and, you know, I'm glad I did. It was a joy. Suramar was a great zone, and then, you know, in a later patch, they introduced Argus. I mean, they gave you basically a whole new planet. Of course, it was only 3 zones, but to be able to go to Argus, I think, is really neat from a lore perspective. It's something that I think everyone has thought about for a long time. They're like, oh, what if we went to Argus, you know? And finally that happened, and there was just, I don't know, there was just so much to do once you hit 110 in Legion. And they gave you, what, 5 or 6 really solid raids? Let's see, Darkheart Thicket, Trial of Honor, Trial of Hero, whatever it's called, Nighthold, Antorus. What's the other one I'm forgetting? Forgetting one other. It doesn't matter, but yeah, like 5 or 6 really solid raids, all of which I really enjoyed. And again, you know, I just did LFR. I'm not a serious raider, but to experience that content was a lot of fun, even in an LFR perspective. It was just really well done. Each raid felt real distinct and interesting. I don't know, Legion was just, they really hit it out of the park. I put more time into Legion than I put into, you know, probably every other expansion combined, and that's including, like, Lich King and Burning Crusade. And I put a ton of time into Lich King. So that kind of says something about how good Legion was, but I really enjoyed Legion, and everyone I've talked to, I've never really talked to anyone who said they thought Legion sucked. You know, not everyone thinks it was, like, the greatest thing since sliced bread like I do, but everyone at least says it was good, you know? And I think a lot of people do think it was the best expansion since Lich King. They really nailed it. And it's not that it was perfect. I mean, I think, like, the artifact weapons was a neat idea, but they should have figured out a better way to either have those continue with you past Legion, or I don't know. I'm rambling on that. I don't really have a solid, like, thought on what they should have done differently, but it was a neat experiment. Class halls, I think, should have continued. also past Legion, because like it was a neat experiment, and now you're just like when you launch a mission in Battle for Azeroth, you're just standing on a ship. It's like a lot of the magic is kind of gone there, you know. Legion was just really good. I think some people have this perspective that nostalgia means doing the same thing over and over forever, right? And like that's why people want a vanilla server. That's why they want WoW Classic. That's why people played Nostalrius. And like more power to those people. I'm not saying that you're wrong for enjoying vanilla, but I just don't. And like I started during Burning Crusade, which vanilla was still very much a thing, right? Burning Crusade was just more vanilla. Lich King was just more vanilla. It wasn't until Cataclysm that the vanilla content was pretty irreparably deleted. So I leveled characters through the vanilla questing stuff, and I'm here to tell you, man, it was a slog. You know, at the time it was cool. It was a lot of fun at the time, and nowadays my pet is just like fucking off somewhere. Nowadays to go back and do vanilla content, I would rather fucking like no. I'm not gonna do it. But that's me. Like I get that some people really want vanilla servers. I feel like most people who say that, Blizzard said something like this. They said, you think you want vanilla, but you don't. And I feel like most people, that's true. There's, 10% of the people who say they want vanilla actually will play it. But I think 90% of the people who say they want vanilla will, join that server, create a character, play for a week, get bored, and either quit WoW entirely or go back to current content. Because it's so dated. It's 14 years old. It's not fun by today's standards. There's so many little quality of life improvements. I'm not saying that every change that's been made to WoW is for the better. There's a lot of things I miss from back in those days. But, like, overall, there's been so many quality of life improvements since then that I think we take for granted and sort of just willfully ignore when thinking back on vanilla with rose-tinted glasses, whatever. And once you actually play it, you won't enjoy it as much as you might think. That's my perspective. Again, not everyone. I think there are some legitimate diehards who, if WoW introduces a classic server, they will play it until the day they die, but to me, they're crazy. I just don't see the appeal. So that's my little WoW Classic rant for this video. I told you this was just gonna be a rambling video. So if you're looking for a coherent Battle for Azeroth review, this is not the place. But if you're looking for a guy to just sort of talk about WoW and the state of the game currently, I've got a lot of thoughts. So stick with me. But I do have one more thing to say about WoW Classic, which is, Blizzard has announced that they're doing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it never materializes. They never seemed particularly enthusiastic about actually delivering on that promise, and it's been maybe a year since they announced that. And I haven't heard anything. I don't know if anyone else has, and I'm just not in the know, but I haven't heard any news about it. I just don't think they're going to actually deliver it. It wouldn't surprise me if any day they put out an announcement saying, yeah, we're canceling that, because, like, I know some people want it, but like I said, and like they said, a lot of people think they want it and don't, and I think Blizzard... Not that every decision they make is good, because they make a lot of decisions with Battle for Azeroth that I don't like, and I'm going to get into that. But I think generally speaking, they know what they're doing. And, putting together a classic server would take a lot of work. Keeping it running, and balancing it and actually delivering. And then, what patch do they use? Like, people say, oh, we'll just make it vanilla. Do you mean, like, literally patch 1.0? Or, what do you want? I would assume you want, like, the last vanilla patch pre-Burning Crusade. I don't know. I don't know how Blizzard's going to do it, if they ever do it, but I kind of don't think they'll ever actually do it. So that's the last thing I'll say about Classic, because I am not the target audience for Classic. I played through vanilla, but I am not the target audience for it, so I shouldn't trash talk it too much, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who'd be like, you're completely wrong, and that's fine. Like, if you are heart set on playing that content again, more power to you. I just do not see the appeal. And I think, like, new players who picked WoW up, since Cataclysm, and never got to experience vanilla content, they would probably create a character on the Classic server just to experience it, and they'd probably play for like 10 minutes and be like, this sucks. Because, again, there's so many quality of life improvements that I think just, really make that content feel dated. So, but that's the last I'll say about Classic, because I want to get on to talking about Battle for Azeroth. And as I said at the very beginning of this video, I like it. I don't love it. Compared to, am I even supposed to be in here? No, it's like upstairs. Compared to Legion, I don't love it. So again, where should I start talking about Battle for Azeroth? I guess the leveling experience. So, Zandalar and Kul Tiras. They are very well done. Zandalar in particular. I think Kul Tiras is hit and miss, and I'll get into that. The first character I leveled was my Blood Elf Demon Hunter, so Horde. So I leveled through the Zandalar content. I think Zuldazar is a really neat zone. It's really pretty. There's a lot of fun quests. It reminds me a lot of Val'sharah. Just, I like sort of like jungly, foresty aesthetics. Like, I like this kind of aesthetic. I just think this particular zone's pretty dated, but I like that kind of zone. So Zuldazar tickled that for me. I really like the dinosaurs. The models on the dinosaurs, really, really well done. It's just a real fun zone to play through. Nazmir is a little less fun. It's not that it's bad or anything. It's just, it's sort of just Zuldazar, but like more dank and like murky. And obviously that's the point. It's a swamp, but it does sort of get kind of samey feeling after a while. After you've been leveling through it for a few hours, you're like, ugh. And then fucking Vol'dun, I do not really care for. I've never been a big fan of desert areas, just in games in general, but especially in WoW. Like, there's several desert zones. Like, Uldum in Kata was one of the reasons I quit Kata, because I just hated it. It was such a boring zone to level in. And Vol'dun is basically the same way. I just find it really uninteresting. It's really samey and just boring, and it sucks. But I got through it, and that's to each his own. That's my subjective opinion. If you like, the desert aesthetic, you'll probably enjoy it. I just don't really enjoy it in video games. But anyway, Zandalar as a continent, I think, is really well designed. Kul Tiras, the second character I leveled was my Alliance Hunter. Stormsong Valley, I think, is gorgeous. A beautifully designed zone. An interesting story, like a lot of interesting lore there. I really enjoyed Stormsong. Tiergard Sound is neat. I think Borealis is a really cool city. Like, I love that aesthetic. It's sort of the like turn of the century. It's almost like turn of the century London. It reminds me a lot of Gilneas, honestly. Yeah, Borealis is a really well designed city, and Tiergard Sound is neat. It's sort of Nordic-ish, and I like that. Drusvar is pretty dull. Like, it's just kind of barren feeling, and just like grim. Like grim can be cool. Like Ghostlands from Burning Crusade, the second Blood Elf zone. Ghostlands is one of my favorite zones because it's grim, but it's like colorful and it's interesting and sort of mysterious, right? It feels haunted and interesting. I really to this day love Ghostlands. Drusvar is just kind of dull. It's just kind of barren. Like I like that like red grassed area with the witches, but overall, yeah, I'm not super crazy about Drusvar, but you know. So what's the actual leveling experience like in BFA? I think it's pretty solid. It doesn't take too long. So BFA came out Monday afternoon on August 6th, and I capped my Demon Hunter on Thursday. So it only took me 2.5 days or something like that. And it's not like I was playing 24/7. I probably played 8 hours a day, but it probably only took about 20 total hours to level. That might even be more than it really took. So I think like the actual leveling experience in where do I go to do this anyway? Ogre Mage. I think the actual leveling experience is pretty solid. The stories are all fairly interesting. The characters are all pretty interesting. It's nice to see Coltyrus finally after so many years, and it's nice to see Zandalar finally after so many years. Is it better or worse than the Legion leveling content? Is it better or worse than the Broken Isles? I can't answer that necessarily. It's certainly not the same. And I wouldn't want it to be the same. But I think one thing that they sacrificed in making the Horde and the Alliance start on separate continents is that instead of, producing 4 really great zones like they did in Legion, they produced 6 okay zones. You know what I mean? Like, there is a bit of quantity over quality. Not that they're bad. Like, they are solid zones. There's nothing wrong with any of them necessarily. Like I said, I'm not crazy about Vol'dun or Drusvar, but I think, that's just the sacrifice that had to be made in making each faction get 3 zones. So fair enough. Okay, so I guess I need to just not kill these guys. This is what happens when you actually try to play this game while talking. You're like, what am I doing? I'm getting sidetracked because now I'm trying to focus on the game. So, okay, so the leveling experience, pretty good. Once you get to 120, the end game content so far has been underwhelming. And that's where, BFA goes from, for me, when I said I like it but I don't love it, that's kind of a lot of where it starts to fall apart for me. Because I feel like right now, hopefully this changes over time, but right now, I need 2 more enforcers. You get to 120, and I feel like there's just not a lot to do. Like the war campaign is fun, but it doesn't take too long. You're grinding out rep for your faction to finish the war campaign, and it's fun. It's interesting. It's nice to go do some stuff on the other faction's continent. Yeah, and the world PvP aspect, I think war mode was a good idea because it does encourage people to, toggle world PvP and actually sort of get back to WoW's roots in terms of faction versus faction. That being said, it can be really, really annoying, and this is just an inherent thing in World PvP when you're just trying to level your character, and some asshole from the other faction, you're like 112 or something, and some asshole who's 120 comes up and just fucking ganks you over and over and over. That is obnoxious. And there's really, I don't think there's any necessary way to fix that. I mean, obviously, it's on you to just turn off war mode if you don't want to deal with that. And I've only really found that a problem once or twice when I was leveling my Alliance Hunter. Like, I'm not a big PvP guy. I'm just not very good at it, and it's not that I don't enjoy it. I just don't. It's not something I like really seek out, and I'm just not good at it. So even if I'm max level, I'm probably already gonna lose like any World PvP encounter just because I'm so shitty at it. But I want World PvP mode on because I want that experience boost. So, if I'm a 112 hunter and there's some 120 guy ganking me over and over again, I'm especially fucked because I'm really not good at it. But again, that's on me to decide whether or not I want to keep World PvP on. So, once you hit 120, this is where I think war mode starts to fall apart as a concept. Is once you hit 120, there is absolutely no incentive to keep war mode on unless you enjoy World PvP. And me as a person, since as I said, I'm not a big PvP guy, I don't. So I turned it off at 120 on all my characters because there's no incentive anymore. You're not getting any more experience because obviously you're max level. They should have figured out some other thing to keep you as the player wanting to have that toggled on even once you hit 120. I don't know, necessarily what that would have been. Maybe like you generate honor points automatically at like a slow rate over time. Like, you get one honor point every 15 minutes or something as long as you have war mode turned on or something. I think that might have been a cool idea. Something like that. Just give you some reason to actually keep it on at 120. Because, like, for me, it got to the point where, as I'm not a big PvP guy, I would just be trying to do my daily world quests in Coltiris on my 120 Demon Hunter, and you just get fucking raffle stomped by Alliance players. And it's like, well, I have absolutely no incentive to keep World PvP on, so I'm just going to turn it off. And I did. And yeah, so that's kind of one thing where that falls apart. But I do give Blizzard credit for taking the initiative to come up with a way to incentivize World PvP, because I don't think there's really been World PvP in any serious capacity since, probably since Lich King, So, good on him for trying. It was an interesting experiment. I think it works for the most part, but yeah, there's some failings. And then, okay, so in terms of other current endgame content for BFA, it's like, I don't know, there's just not that much, it's like, there's not that much. Like, you can go do your dailies, in Zandalar and Coltiris and grind out rep. And like, yeah, I'm working on Battle for Azeroth Pathfinder because I want it. But it's not as easy or fun for me as working on Legion Pathfinder was, because, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of good endgame content to keep you interested in Legion. And so far there's just not that much. Like, there's no reason... I guess what I'm saying is, currently in Battle for Azeroth, there's no reason to grind out rep other than to grind out rep. So, that's one of the failings of the game currently. That will probably change. I think one thing that BFA needs that Legion had is a dedicated level 120 zone. Once you finished leveling to 110 in Legion, you got to go to Suramar and do quests there, and it kept you engaged. And because the story was interesting. You know, it wasn't just that you're grinding out rep. It was that there was an actual interesting story. You're experiencing new areas and new content. That's something that BFA lacks, because once you finish leveling in Zandalar and Kul Tiras, you're still stuck in Zandalar and Kul Tiras. So it's almost like they needed like another island that you only got to go to once you hit 120 or something. Speaking of island expeditions, they're a neat idea. I don't think they're that great. Like, you're playing against bots or other players. You're collecting Azerite. It's an interesting PvP idea. I just don't think it's all that good. Where do I go here? Jesus Christ. Again, good on them for trying something new, but I just don't... I don't know. I can't really see myself doing island expeditions that much. You know, I guess I'm almost running out of things to talk about already, which is not a good sign, but I think that kind of points to how I feel about BFA. I just don't feel like there's that much to talk about right now. Old Year just came out, and again, like, I haven't done it because I'm waiting for the LFR on that, so I'm not the best, you know, source to talk about raiding in general. But I do look forward to trying that and seeing how the content is. I look forward to more raids coming out. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's... I guess I'll end the video. I've already been rambling for 46 minutes, and I doubt anyone is even gonna fucking watch this entire thing and listen to me ramble for an hour. But I will wrap this up by talking very briefly about the future of WoW, or at least what I want out of the future of WoW. And I was talking to my friend Ron about this. You know, we play WoW together religiously, and we talk about it practically every day when there's a new expansion out. And what we were talking about, that's the entrance to the... Do I actually have to go? It doesn't say it's a dungeon quest, but I don't even know if it does. But anyway, what we were talking about was the fact that a lot of this content needs to be revamped. This content right here, Feralos, you know, the vanilla zones that I suppose are now the Cataclysm zones. The 1 through 60 grind needs to be revamped. This is 8-year-old content. A lot of it is 8-year-old content sort of sandwiched on top of 14-year-old content. It looks dated. It looks old. The questing could be revitalized. The story needs to be revitalized. You're a new player, right? You start at level 1. Let's say you make a Blood Elf. All right? You start at level 1. You start in Burning Crusade content. Even though the Sunwell was purified 10 years ago in real-world time and in-game time, because the story in-game kind of roughly follows real-world years, the Sunwell was purified 10 years ago. But you're a new player in 2018 as a Blood Elf, starting in I can't even remember, Eversong Woods. and all the NPCs are like, we need to purify the Sunwell. And it's like, there's a huge lore disconnect there. Do I have to go into the dungeon to do this quest? Wow, fuck that. There's this huge lore disconnect there. And I guess as a new player, like, you wouldn't really know that, but it's more of a principle of the thing. And as a returning player too, like, how many times do I want to play through Eversong Woods with the current quests? You know, I've done it a million times, and I just don't want to do it anymore. I really wish they would revamp that content. Not just the Burning Crusade starting areas, but, like, even the ones they did for Cataclysm. They need to revamp all the starting areas. They need to revamp the 1 through 60. They need to... Honestly, I'd like to see them revamp Outland. You know, it's been 10 years, and people, like, in-game, lore-wise, people live on Outland, and it's been 10 years since we drove the Legion out of it. I'd really like to see how Outland has progressed in that time. Northrend could be revamped. You know, we defeated the Lich King, so give us some new content to play in Northrend while we're leveling through 70 and 80. It's all about It's all about some new. I guess I'm just gonna go to this quest. It's all about some new content, in my opinion. That's what WoW needs right now. And I think after Battle for Azeroth would be the perfect time to do basically a complete fucking wipe. And a lot of people would bitch, and a lot of people would moan, but I think... I guess what I'm describing is a sequel, right? What I'm describing is WoW 2. But you don't have to call it that. It can still just be WoW and be considered another expansion, but everyone starts over at level 1. The world is built anew from the ground up, completely new. Azeroth is completely new from the ground up. And, you know, give us new quests, give us new content. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Because I feel like 120 levels is just too much. It's getting ridiculous. They should really just do a squish. But more than do a squish, they should do a refresh and just give us a WoW 2. And I know a lot of people would be bummed to lose their collections, like their appearance collections, their mount collections. You know, maybe you could keep WoW in its current state running so people could still play that if they want. I don't know. That's probably a bad idea because, like I said, I think vanilla servers are a bad idea, so what would make that any better? But I think one easy thing you could do is, you know, you introduce WoW 2, so to speak. Everyone starts at level 1, but I think it would be easy enough for them to do a system where you can carry forward any of your level capped characters. So like my 120 Demon Hunter, I could carry forward into WoW 2 at level 1. My 120 Death Knight could carry forward into WoW 2 at level 1, etc., etc. And you'd get some like legacy perks. You know, you'd get to maybe you get to keep your mount appearances, maybe you get to keep your item appearances, something like that. You get to keep your titles. So it would give people an incentive to carry their characters forward. And besides, I don't want to lose. Like, I've had my Death Knight since fucking Lich King. I don't want to lose him. I love that fucker. You know? But I still think a clean slate needs to happen. That's where it's at. You can't have a game go on for 14 years without some parts of it starting to become really stale and dated. And that's where we're getting with WoW. WoW is still a great, great game. I love it. I come back to it every expansion, for the most part. And, you know, and I love it. But we're getting to the point where it's been 14 years since vanilla. It's been 10 years since the Cataclysm refresh. It's 2018. Games are a lot better looking than this now, you know? And I'm not just talking about graphics. I'm talking about all the things Blizzard has learned since then. They've figured out how to use really good use of zone phasing and stuff like that to make you feel engrossed in the world that you're in. All of this could be of great use to this content right here, this dated content. So, I'm rambling. I'm going to wrap it up. It's been a 52-minute video already. Just what I'm saying is, I hope Battle for Azeroth is the last WoW expansion, or at least the last WoW 1 expansion. And if there's another expansion after this, I hope it's a clean slate sequel, you know? So, I'm interested to see where BFA goes. We're at the very beginning of it. I know there'll be more content. I hope it gets more interesting. I hope that there's more for my 120s to do. You know, I really loved Legion, and so far this is not as good, but it's not bad. So, you know, if for some reason you watch this 53-minute video of some guy rambling, and you're someone who like doesn't play WoW and you're wondering if it's a good time to get into the game, I do actually think it's a good time to get into the game. I do. I think this is a good time to get into the game. Yeah, I don't know. That's about all I have to say. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I stream on Twitch. It's in the description. That's it. So, take care. Bye-bye.